Teacher unions say educators work in fearful conditions because of the violent behavior of pupils. It follows a disturbing video going viral showing a Hoërskool Jan de Klerk pupil in Krugersdorp jumping on the back of a teacher. The schoolboy could be seen holding the elderly teacher in a choke grip position. To discuss this further, I'm now joined by NAPTOSA Executive Director Basil Manuel, as well as Gauteng Education spokesperson Mabona. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you for your time. Let's start with you, Mr. Mabona. Just give us your version of what transpired in that video.
Good evening, Mpho, and to all our viewers. Look, we have launched an investigation just to understand on what might have transpired there. But as you have witnessed on the video, that one learner is seen being ill-disciplined. If you look at that video, we don't expect our children to behave in that fashion when they are in a school environment. Hence, the SGB will then take in confidence all those that are appearing in the video, just to understand on what transpired. So they've already been served with their letters. On Monday, they will be coming with their parents, and we will then have more information on what might have transpired, and the sanctions will then be meted out, and we will be in a position to know on how we're moving forward. But it's things that you don't want to see in our environment, and we really call upon parents to work with us. Learners need to understand that they need to be disciplined at all times, because we have a code of conduct at all our schools, which is crafted by parents, and they need to assist us to enforce discipline in our school. Because if a learner is going to come to a school and disrespect a teacher or an educator, then we are doomed as the entire system, because teachers play a significant role in our environment. Without teachers, actually, there's no education system. So they need to be given that respect so that they assist us to teach and make sure that the country benefit from their craft, because they play a significant role in the classroom and in the entire system.
Very well. Mr. Manuel, just roping you into the conversation here. When you saw the video, what were your thoughts?
Like Steve said, it paints a picture that we don't want to see. It paints a picture that gives our schools a bad name, and it gives our department a bad name. And certainly, as a teacher union, we don't want to see that. But then, of course, it speaks to a lot of things. Ill discipline, as has been mentioned, and of course, here is a senior teacher, and there are many senior teachers in our system. Can you imagine what the trauma he went through when a youngster jumps on his back and throttles him? Now, that is not what we want to see. And I will give that little boy probably was caught up in all the frenzy that was going on there. There are a lot of things that preceded this youngster jumping on this teacher's back. But all of them point to one thing: ill discipline. And of course, it does make teachers concerned. It does make many, many others worried, even about sending their children to certain types of schools. And we want public education to be the best education. But these incidents we can't tolerate. Not today, not ever.
Mr. Mabona, as we perhaps bring ill discipline to the forefront here, where we see a young boy going on the back of a teacher, it first appeared as though he was being playful up until he held on a lot closer to the elderly teacher's neck, throat. And that in itself pointing to perhaps a more disturbing conversation as to what was he caught in the frenzy, or was it now leading to something else?
Look, from what we have seen, it's quite disturbing. That's why we felt that immediately there must be disciplinary process that will have to unfold, so that we understand on what really encouraged him from doing that. But irrespective, there's no room for such behavior to happen in our space. That's why we have a code of conduct which dictates on how a learner should behave in our environment. So it's important that learners need to understand that there's decorum in our schools and they need to behave, because parents crafted code of conduct saying this is how we think our children must behave in a school environment. And they need to adhere to that, because transgression of a code of conduct, it means then you are disrespecting not only the teachers, but your parents, because they are the ones that are saying this is what we need to see in our schools, from our children. So it's quite disturbing, but safe to say that as a department we are monitoring the situation very closely, and we should be in a position to come in the public to say this is how this matter was managed, but we will not encourage that, and we will not going to tolerate it.
Mr. Manuel, as we speak of one pupil, what we do note in that video is that it wasn't just about the one pupil. What was happening in the commotion, a group of other learners were now involved in a brawl, which now speaks to the manner in which classrooms are being managed in terms of the teacher, and some expectations when it comes to teachers disciplining the classroom. It appears that this elderly teacher was really not able to manage the children in the class, as there were two incidents happening, a brawl on one end, a learner jumping on his back. He appeared to be outnumbered in his own classroom.
Yes, there's a lot of things that we obviously don't know. But one of the things that we must accept is that when we have a situation getting out of hand, the best teacher in the world with 40 children, or whatever the number was, would find it difficult to jump into the middle of that. Add to that the age of the teacher, and then you can see that it becomes more difficult. But you're so right, Mpho. It's more than an incident of one child. There were children egging him on. There were other children fighting. And that is where this thing seemed to have started. And it goes to discipline. Now, let's talk about the role of the parents. Our parents have got to come to the party. Schools are not responsible for all the discipline, because will that child jump on his grandfather's back at home when he is chastising somebody or something like that? And it can't be. And yes, it does create an element of fear. How does this teacher go back into the class? What support structure is there for that teacher? And we must remember that he must still go back to maintain discipline to be able to teach the next lesson that happens. And this breaks down the entire culture of learning, which is so important. Those learners are so privileged to be in a class, to be in a school, when there are thousands who have to battle every year to get in. And that is what is most upsetting, that those who are there don't always respect the privilege of being in a school and of being in a good school. So what we as NAPTOSA want to see is that, yes, the department must get that investigation off the ground, the governing body must play its role, and we've got to start corrective discipline. We don't want to see every problem as though it's a nail and we must hammer everything. But what we do want to see is the return to better discipline. Schooling cannot achieve its purpose of making learners learn if we don't have sufficient discipline.
And what would corrective discipline speak to, Mr. Manuel, in this instance?
First of all, the people those youngsters that are part of this whole thing must take responsibility for it. Parents must come in, and there must be consequences of the discipline. But more than that is that they need to demonstrate that this was a once-off happening and that they want to be there and they want to learn. Schools cannot, and teachers especially, cannot spend all their time correcting children. Then when does teaching happen? When do we move forward? And so when I talk about corrective discipline, it draws in the parents, it draws in the child, it draws in the department. There's a triumvirate here, the three parts that make up a school community must be involved.
Mr. Mabona, pardon me, as he makes mention of the support structure that needs to now be taken upon, the teacher. What sort of support structure will you come in as a department to offer the teacher so that he can confidently go back to the classroom and continue to teach with a level of respect within the learners in school? What are you hoping to do in that space? And also, when are you hoping to resolve this matter, call in the parents and sit them down, as you made mention?
Now we can confirm that parents will be coming from Monday. All those that have been identified. It's not only the one boy that is seen, in the back of the teacher. All of them that have been identified there, they will be going to disciplinary hearing. And the teacher, we will continue because the process has already started. The teacher, there's what we call employee wellness in the education sector, where we will then have our officials who will be working very closely with professionals to provide necessary support. So that will be coming at the department's expense. We provide that all the time to our employees. So that will take care of, so that the educator is in a position to go back to the classroom. And we normally don't rush them to go back into the classroom if they feel uncomfortable. So they need to be assisted so that they are in a position to go back in the classroom. So that will take care of. But the discipline will start on Monday, and the outcome thereof will then guide us on how are we moving forward. Because remember, recommendations will then be expected from the SGB on any sanction that would have been agreed upon by them when they conduct that, because this is their children. That's why discipline will always be facilitated by SGB, because they represent parents. So it means that this is their children.
More and more teachers are speaking about working in fearful conditions, Mr. Mabona. What is the department doing when it comes to ensuring that classrooms are indeed safe for both parties, the educator and the learner? In this incident, one would have expected that some security would come in to assist, or some other teachers would be able to come in and help calm the situation. What are you doing about making sure that schools are indeed safe and that teachers can confidently walk into classes without any sort of fear?
Now, remember, we will be stretching it if you expect education to have security that will be responsible for managing classrooms. Educators assist us to manage classrooms. We work very closely with Department of Community Safety to make sure that we have a sense of a buffer in a way when coming to security on the environment, because we work very closely with our sister department, Department of Community Safety, and the police. And each and every school has what we call a police liaison officer, meaning that in the event of anything, the principal can directly interact with the officer, and the necessary support will then be provided to a school. So that's how we manage it now, to make sure that our schools are safe. That's why a principal, if he or she suspect that there might be things that are not going as per what they see, they then call the police to conduct what we call search and seizure, to check if there's drugs, weapons that are unwanted in the environment. They do that on a sporadically, so they don't even need to announce that this is going to be happening, so that they, in the event they find those, then they know how they're going to be processing those learners. We work very closely with social development to attend to those rebellious, if I were to put it that way, learners or problematic learners, to make sure that we assist them to repent from their behavior. So making sure that at least we will have the environment that is safe. We have school safety, There's clear policies that are being implemented in all our schools on making sure that all our schools are safe. So that's how we are managing the school safety in our environment.
Very well. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Let me thank you for your time this evening. That was Gauteng Education spokesperson Steve Mabona, as well as Basil Manuel of NAPTOSA, speaking to that disturbing video that went viral